We ask, what is the creepiest or most unexplained thing that's happened to you that you still think about to this day? In college, I was roommates with my childhood best friend for about 2 years. We are very trusting with each other. We would go into each other's rooms freely and grab whatever we needed. To borrow clothes, hairbrushes, perfumes, etc. No questions asked. Just a knock if we were in the room to let each other know we were going in. Our rooms are across the hall from each other, with the hall facing the kitchen. So, from the kitchen, you could see down the hall where our rooms were. At the time, my friend had very long black hair and she was very fair-skinned. One day, I get home from work with my headphones in my ear, talking to my mom about my day. I go into the kitchen and grab a snack. I see her walk out of her room and go into mine. Leave my room and go back into hers. She looked like she's just gotten out of the shower, her hair soaking wet, and she was wrapped in a white towel. Her long black wet hair is what I distinctly remember. Also, she made no eye contact with me, but I did not think it was weird. I did not say anything to her since borrowing each other's stuff was normal. I'm still on the phone with my mom, so I don't think much of it. I grab my snack, hang up with my mom, and go to my room to watch TV. I figured she was getting ready to go somewhere and we'll talk later. About an hour passes and I go to the kitchen and clean the plate I ate on. I see her in the kitchen making something to eat and I tell her, "Hey, why did you grab from my room earlier? Did you find what you needed?" She looks at me as if I was crazy and says, "What are you talking about?" So I say, "Yeah, earlier when I got home, I saw you go into my room and grab something. Did you get what you needed?" "Sorry, I didn't say hi. I was on the phone with my mom." She asks me if I'm sure I saw her, and I say yes, 100%. She tells me to grab my phone and go to her car ASAP, that she needs to show me something. I had my phone on when she grabbed the keys from the kitchen counter, along with her purse, and she drags me out to the front door and into her car. She then tells me she got home maybe 5 minutes before we started talking. She had spent the night with her boyfriend and had not been home all day. So, she has no idea who I saw. I'll never forget the look of her face when she told me this. Complete fear and panic. She called the cops and they came along with the apartment manager. They checked the whole apartment and found no one. Nothing amiss. And they were in there while checking every nook and cranny. The manager got maintenance to change our locks and gave us new keys that day. My friend then tells me that for a week she'd been hearing noises from her bathroom like bottles moving. And when she went to check, she found nothing. I have no idea who I saw going out of our rooms, but it looked exactly like my friend. I don't drink or do drugs, not on medication. This was in 2014 and I still freak out when I think about it. When I was 13, I moved into my brother's bedroom, as it's an extension to the original house with an en-suite and is far larger than my old room. Originally, it was a tiny box room with the entrance to the attic, but it was extended outwards. The attic entrance is always open, with a permanent set of metal ladders angled up into it. The gray arch is where the original room ended. Within a few weeks of moving in, I'd wake up in the middle of the night to see a figure staring down at me with a white head like a skull and a formless black body. It would slowly move down to the foot of my bed and stare at me until I moved, at which point it would sink into the floor. Just sleep paralysis, right? And I'd begged to be moved into a room and just got it set up so I wasn't going to leave. I did not talk about it to anyone. It gradually became less frequent over time. 8 years after this, my brother mentioned at a get-together that he used to have sleep paralysis demons where he lived. In the room, half joking, half freaked out, looking at the people when the topic of that came up. He described the same fucking thing. Neither of us mentioned it to anybody else at the time it was happening, so we have no explanation for us both experiencing the same thing. I don't think I've ever talked about this to anyone because it still hurts to think about, But yeah, I wanted to share this here. Also, this is quite a long one. I had this neighbor who was around 30 and he was such a sweet guy. Let's say his name was Adam. I felt like he was the kind of older brother I've always wished for. He was an all-rounder, a gym freak, good at singing and playing every possible instrument, dance, sports, cooking, etc. He used to take me and my younger brother to the beach whenever possible. So, this incident took place 3 days before my 14th birthday. I was on my way to school in the morning when this absurd scene flashed in front of my eyes. It was him getting into an accident and dying. It felt so real I almost wanted to cry, but when I told myself maybe it was because I watched a movie with the character dying the previous night, I continued the day with it, almost 8 p.m. when my parents got a call from someone. I could see their faces change expressions. Once the call ended, they said they needed to go somewhere and would be back in a while. I wasn't sure what was happening, but I felt like something was not right. The next morning, I woke up to the worst news of my life. Adam was no more. He met with a major accident that previous night and died on the spot. I did not know how to react because a few hours before he died, I had a bad feeling. For days, I couldn't even sleep, and I blamed myself because I felt like maybe I could have warned him about it and maybe he could still be alive. It's been almost 7 years since this incident took place, but every time I think about it, my heart aches and I still wish for him to be alive. I still can't figure out why I had that sort of feeling hours before it happened, and it scares me. Midnight Monster here. If you guys have had similar experiences, post in the comment section below. Also, go ahead and subscribe if you're liking these type of stories, as Midnight Monster will be dropping daily videos. When I was in the 3rd grade, I moved to a new town and into a new house. We lived in a camper in the backyard of the house while it was being renovated. It was a pretty old house. Anyways, during the renovation, we found all sorts of stuff on the walls. Old bottles, old pairs of glasses, letters, old newspapers, old pictures of children in school clothes. It was a 2-story house and the stairs were kind of focal point for all sorts of creepy stuff. So once you got to the top of the stairs, there was a little landing before it went into 2 bedrooms. At night, we would always leave the light on the landing in case we had to go use the bathroom. I and one brother shared a room, and the other room was for our older brother. I refused to sleep upstairs due to how creeped out I was, so I always slept downstairs on the couch. One weekend, my sister, who's older than both of my brothers, came to visit and was in my oldest brother's bedroom, as we were all in school and my mom was at work. As she was sitting up there watching TV, she heard footsteps coming up the stairs and called out as she had thought my mom has come home early from work. No responses other than the footsteps turning around and heading back down the stairs. When she got up to look, there was no one home and all the doors were locked. It does not stop there. My oldest brother was left alone for a week while I and my other brother and mom and dad went on a week-long vacation. Naturally, he had his girlfriend over a couple nights to keep him company. One night, she got up to pee around 3 a.m., went downstairs to the bathroom where she said she heard children whispering. A couple nights later, around 3 to 4 a.m., the girlfriend woke my brother saying someone's in the house. They heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Since the light was on the landing, they could see a shadow underneath the door like someone was standing there, and the doorknob began to shake. Luckily, it was locked. They both started to freak out and my brother jumped up out of the bed. We had some of those dumb display samurai type swords that aren't even sharp, and he grabbed one of those and went towards the door. They heard more footsteps running down the stairs, and he bravely or stupidly followed down the stairs after them, where he was met with an empty house. All windows and doors are closed and locked. He called the police, but nothing came of it. A few years ago, I was at the lowest point of my life. Several people close to me had passed away unexpectedly, and I was being bullied every day at my job, and my life was simply falling apart. I was past being depressed, I just couldn't imagine waking up another day. So, I planned my suicide. I bought a one-way plane ticket, got sleeping pills, and wrote a series of suicide notes. On the day I was to fly out to fulfill my plan, there was a terrible accident on the freeway to the airport. It shut down both ways, so I drove into a nearby pub to have a beer and wait out the traffic. The second I sat on the patio with my drink, a gentleman asked me if he could sit down. Whatever, I thought. Sure, who cares? He told me that whatever I was doing was a terrible idea, and I would regret it. I thought, who is this random fucker? But I listened. He said that he sensed I was in pain, but I had an incredible life ahead of me, and that this was not the way my story was supposed to end. Again, I've never met this guy in my life and had not mentioned a word to him about my plan. He asked me to hand him my keys, hand him my wallet, and he'd give them back to me after I talked and he listened. I poured my heart out to this random guy, told him all my traumas and pain in life, and why I was heading to the airport on a one-way ticket to kill myself in a cemetery across the country where my family was buried. He listened. Opening his coat pocket, he pulled out a lighter, asked me to pull out my suicide letters and hand them to him. He lit them afire and burned them. He told me I was worth so much to the world and that after I finished my drink, I needed to head home and get some shut-eye. He told me I was going to be okay tomorrow. I believed him. He then gave me my keys and wallet back. I left that afternoon and went home and hugged my family. Got some sleep, and the next day, I started working on myself, finding a therapist and a new job. Years later, I'm in a fantastic place in my life. So far, where I was that day, to this day, no one in my life knows how close I am to killing myself, but this random stranger just somehow understood me. He saved my life. I never saw him again. I don't even know his name. It's the most unexplained thing that's ever happened to me, and I think about that guy every day. So, thank you, kind stranger, for saving my life that random September day on a pub patio. My grandma and I both saw a dead person in our laundry room once. So, the laundry room's connected to the kitchen by a doorway. The doorway connected to the living room as well. One afternoon, Grandma needed a hamper, so I followed her to the laundry. We saw the dead person as soon as we stepped foot into that doorway. It looked to be about my height. I was 6 or 7 and black. Not as in a black person, but with literal black coating on its skin. It was slumped near the washing machine. We only saw it for a split second, enough time to register that it was there, and then it was gone. I remember my grandma saying, "Did you see that?" and laughing it off. She got the hamper and did her thing, and I just avoided the kitchen for a while. And on a semi-related note, I used to have the freakiest nightmares in that house. I had nightmares so graphic, so often, that my pediatrician wanted me to see a therapist. Back in 2008, I lived near my college in an apartment. My apartment was set back from the main road quite a bit and was in a wooded and hilly area. One night, I was out running near sundown. I'm at the bottom of the hill that's behind my apartment, so it was near the end of my run. I look up ahead to the top of the hill and notice 3 guys on bikes just sitting there. Being a 20-year-old female, my spidey senses start tingling. I tell myself I'm psyching myself out and it'll be fine, so I keep running. I'm about halfway up the hill and the 3 guys are still just sitting there, facing my direction. I don't have a phone or anything, and nowhere else to go, so I tell myself I'll just run as hard and as fast as I can and scream if need be. Suddenly, I hear something coming up beside me. I look to my right and I see a German Shepherd. It's running alongside me. I've never seen this dog before in my life. I can't explain it, but I just knew I'd be okay now. I continued running up the hill with this random dog beside me. When we're approaching the guys, this dog gets slightly ahead of me and runs directly in front of me instead of my right. He gets to the guys and stops dead in his tracks. I continue running and past the guys without even making eye contact. Once I'm past the guys, the dog catches back up to me and continues running alongside me. He stays with me until I take the turn to my apartment. Very well-lit parking lot. He disappears into the trees as quickly as he appeared. I took the route to the same time every single day for weeks and would drive down that road often hoping to come across him again. No luck. I never saw that dog again. My friends are all convinced he was a guardian angel, making sure I stayed safe. I'm not a believer, so I don't know, but it's the most creepy, bizarre, and awesome thing that's ever happened to me. I was probably about 16 or 17 and had just gotten home from high school. My brother was in the kitchen making a ruckus, so I started that way. As I passed by his bedroom, I saw my mom in there, sitting on his bed with the lights off, facing away from me and towards the wall. I stopped, stood in the doorway and asked if she was okay, and what she was doing. She said slowly, "Just sitting. Come here, I need to talk to you." I took about a half step into the room when I heard my mom yelling for me in the kitchen, and then saw her setting the table. I looked back to the bedroom and there was nothing there. I don't think I've ever went back into that room by myself again, even 10 years later. Another story from the same house, since people seem to find this one interesting. One day, my mom and I were out doing yard work in front of the house. At the time, we had a trampoline and it sat in front of my bedroom window, which faced the driveway road. My two little brothers were bouncing on it. They were probably 7 and 9 at the time, and my mom and I sat down in a pair of lawn chairs to take a break. We were watching my little brothers play when suddenly, they both stopped jumping and walked to the edge of the trampoline closest to my bedroom window and sat down facing it. They both started talking, but they were speaking as if they were having a conversation that were only private by two of them. The older one said something like, "Yes, yeah, they're good. No, okay, yeah, they're good." As if he was replying to someone asking him questions. My mom and I looked at each other like, "Are you hearing this right now?" And she asked them, "Who are you guys talking to?" Without looking away from the window, S said, "She says it's great-grandma. She says she misses you." My great-grandmother had died before my little brothers have even been born. They had no idea what she looked like. My mom replied, "Great-grandma's in heaven, baby." To which he looked over at us and said, "Not anymore." They stared at the wall for a little longer and then started playing again as if nothing ever happened. This was again one of the many incidents that happened at that house. I left Florida in 2017, and while I visited the family home many times since leaving, I'll never stay there a night by myself. And I try very hard not to leave the room I stay in. A couple things happened to me and my housemates when we moved into the top apartment in an old building in Europe, right next to a forest known for witchcraft. The locals even have a witches' parade every year. It's harmless and a bit fun. The apartment was huge, 3 bathrooms, 2 bedrooms, a study, 2 living rooms and a living space, a kitchen and 2 balconies. The bigger one was upstairs across from a door to the attic that ran across the entire house. It was a dark and full of a lot of old stuff like from a century ago. We found porcelain, really old wooden furniture, and a doll neither of us wanted to touch. There were also some children's slippers and black and white pictures of a child from the town still had carts pulled by oxen. It was a wonderful place to live, and the cheap rent made it wonderful, but both of us were mildly creeped out in the beginning. We used to hear stuff while in our rooms, like banging or footsteps, or like something had fallen on the carpets. My housemate would text me, "Did you hear that too?" But she soon stopped. She never wanted to talk about it either. I guess she did not want to give it any power by acknowledging it. I clearly remember for the first time she was out. It was winter, so it got dark by 4 p.m. I needed to grab groceries, so I left all the lights on to make myself feel better. I tried to look for my earphones for some music along the way, but I could not find them and I left without them. When I returned, every single light in the house was switched off, except for one in my room. I went to my room. My earphones were lying neatly, rolled on top of my bed. A few other incidents took place while we lived there too, like the bulbs in the corridor and the corridor, dying with loud pops one by one. My housemate hearing something like a dog scratching at her door, texted me saying, let her sleep one evening while I was over at a friend's place. Me hearing a door loudly banging somewhere in the house while I was on the toilet, and the banging stops immediately as soon as I flushed. It was like it did not realize there was someone home. The house was weirdly cold too, but we lived there for a year without anything major happening. I had a short lucid dream, and the scene happened a few days later. I'll dream of a mundane conversation or activity, and a few months later, I'll be halfway through said action or conversation when the dream flashes back into my head. Despite knowing what is going to happen next, I'm unable to change any of it. The most memorable occurred when I was 14 or 15. I played soccer at the time, and I had a dream about being in front of a mirror, like where the mirror and sink area separate from the rest of the bathroom, like at a hotel. And I was brushing my hair and putting it up like I always did before games. I quickly forgot about it, and a few weeks later, I accepted a position on a team that would be going to a national tournament in Tennessee. Flash forward like 6 months, and I'm in the hotel brushing my hair, exactly like in my dream. The mirror, sink, and room are the same. Nothing else eventful happens, and I shake it off uncomfortably and move on with my day. I talked to my dad about it at dinner one night, and he said that sometimes it happens to him as well. My girlfriend and I are in a long-distance relationship. We typically take turns traveling between each other's countries, Australia and Canada. About 2 years ago, it was my turn to travel over to Australia to stay with her and her mom. For a bit of a background, my girlfriend's room was built as an extension add-on to the garage, so to get to it, you had to walk through the garage to get to her room. About a couple of weeks into my trip there, I woke up at like 1 a.m. in the room. It's just glowing red. I look up at the ceiling and I see this black figure crawling through it. It moved in such an inhuman way, almost like it was breaking every one of its bones just to move. I started screaming, which wakes up my girlfriend, and she looks up at the ceiling and starts screaming as well. Instinctively, I grabbed my pillow and whip it at the figure. The next thing I know, everything went black and I'm waking up a few hours later. My girlfriend is fast asleep, so I think it was just some weird dream. At that point, I have to go to the washroom, so I walk through the garage and try to quietly open the garage door to get into the main house. Previously, her mom had mentioned that she was getting annoyed with us staying up late at night and going through the garage door to use the washroom. Since her mom's room was down the garage door, each time we would open it, the door would click loudly and wake her up. So, I'm standing there at the garage door and I try to open it as quietly as possible. As I turn the handle and the door clicks as I push it open, her mom just starts screaming at the top of her lungs. And I thought it was out of rage for waking her up, so I immediately closed the door and speed walk back to my girlfriend's room. I climb into bed and gently nudge her awake to tell her that her mom is screaming. She gets up and goes to see whatever her mom was still angry and tries to de-escalate the situation. About 20 minutes go by and my girlfriend comes back into the room, completely silent. She asked me if I saw the room glowing red earlier as well as a figure in the ceiling. I say yes. She goes wide-eyed and says that she thought it was just a dream. She then says that her mom was not screaming at me. Apparently, when I opened the door, it did wake her up. But when she woke up, there was a black figure standing at the foot of her bed, and it was slowly moving towards her. She then experienced a blackout as well and was woken up by my girlfriend checking in on her. Yeah, the entire house slept with lights on for a month after that. That was 11 creepy stories that you just can't forget. Thanks for tuning in to another video by Midnight Monster. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are liking these type of stories, as Midnight Monster will be dropping daily videos. So stick around if you can handle the spook.